Welcome to The Blueprint. I am Whitney McCoy. Now, The Blueprint is a program which speaks to career advancement and offering insightful strategies into business growth. Today, we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Ramon Small-Ferguson, Chief Executive Officer of Barita Investments Limited, and a lot more. Hi, Mr. Ferguson. Welcome to The Blueprint on Business Access TV.
Thank you very much, Whitney. Thanks for having me here.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
So, tell us a little bit more about Ramon Small-Ferguson, the man behind the name.
Well, that's a very loaded question. So I guess I'll probably segment it into two. I'll start with the professional side of things. I mean, as you said, currently I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Barita Investments Limited, and Barita is a full-service investment bank here, operating here in Jamaica and within the region. I'm also Managing Director of Barita's asset management arm, Barita Unit Trust Management Company, and I've been with Barita for 5+ years, now cycling through a few roles, and now I'm CEO. I became CEO in March. As a professional, I've always been in one investment role or the other. That has been my game for the last decade plus, and I really have a passion for finance and business. What really thrills me about what we do is the value that we're able to create through bringing ideas to reality, whether it's through structures or just the problems that financial solutions are able to solve. That really gets me excited. On the personal front, what can I say that's interesting about me? It's not apparent from me sitting down, but I'm pretty tall. I'm 6'7". I would say I hail from the parish of St. Thomas. I spent most of my formative years there. Primary school, I went to Portmore Primary and Junior High School, and I am a proud alum of Martin Bay High School, where I did 5 years, my full high school education. I came to Kingston for university. I went to University of Technology, and I've been here since. In terms of what I love to do in my personal life, I can now say that I'm pretty into fitness, so I like that kind of thing. I am an avid football fan, although I've been suffering for the last several years because I'm a Manchester United supporter, and we have not been doing so well. But it is what it is. I'm a loyalist, so love football despite the pain. And I mean, a big part of both my professional and personal life is helping people. I really do get a lot of joy out of really helping someone, as simple as it may be, to help them to put one foot in front of the other. So that I think is a big part of my personal and professional brand.
Right. And let's start from the beginning.
Yes.
How did you always know that you were going to pursue a career in finance and investment banking?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I tell people that I have gone through so many different phases of what I would have contemplated from a career perspective from as young as I could remember. So the first career that I wanted to pursue was zoology.
Wow.
As a child, I was just obsessed with Animal Planet and National Geographic, and Steve Irwin was my hero. So I wanted to go jump on crocodiles, right? And that held from, I can't remember myself until maybe high school. Steve Irwin passed away, and crocodiles got much less interesting to me, right? And I still, I suppose, had interest in science and that kind of thing, and I went through different phases of wanting to be one kind of doctor or the other. But I liked the idea, but I didn't love the science, right? The physics and the chemistry and the bio were not resonating well with me. And in fourth form, I did accounts in CXE. And I did well, and I realized that I really loved the numbers.
Oh.
Right? And I love the dollar signs beside the numbers. So I was like, how do I make this into a career? So at that point, I decided I'm going to be an accountant. Right? And that went on for a little while until I went to university. Did my first set of accounting courses and realized that it was much more challenging than just balancing a balance sheet.
Right.
And then I said, all right, what's maybe the cousin of accounts? And I got an opportunity to choose my major, and I ended up choosing finance. And here we are. That's what kind of set me on that path to starting a career in finance.
Of course. So, leaving from Morambe High,
Yes.
coming to Kingston, and going to UTech. What was college life like?
Well, it was very interesting. I'd say that the different phases of my academic life shaped me in different ways. I'd say university really matured me. It brought me into adulthood. So I went to university when I was 16. I moved out of my mother's house and moved to Kingston, and was fending for myself, so to speak. And I graduated university at 20, so you can appreciate that I would have evolved significantly during that time. It was a time of independence. I grew up primarily with my mother, and she took good care of me. Let me say that much. I mean, she made magic with whatever we had. And moving out on my own definitely gave me that independence. I formed some very good bonds in university, some of which still exist today. I learned a lot about myself. I think I learned a lot about the world. It was an interesting time, right? I went to university from 2008 to 2012. And, we at the start of university we were experiencing the global financial crisis. And by the end of university, Jamaica had done one debt exchange and was kind of teetering on the edge with the IMF in terms of an agreement. All of that came to my consciousness while I was in university. Before then, I really knew nothing about what was going on with the world and the economy. And I learned a whole lot at UTech. I must tell you, it was a very fulfilling experience in that it was stressful. But after I left school and actually went into the working world, I was like, I felt prepared. I felt like I actually did courses of substance that helped me to start my career in finance. So it was very useful.
Of course. And 16.
Yes.
Moving out at 16. What was that like? Did you feel some sort of fear taking on the world? You're coming from St. Thomas, you're coming to Kingston, you're going to be all by yourself, it's college. Were you a little fearful to take that on?
Honestly, not really. I mean, in retrospect, right, when I think about it, with hindsight, it should have been scary, but it wasn't. Right? I was just really excited about what university would bring. Right? So I actually left Markville High School at 15. So I graduated high school at 15, and then I did 1 year at St. George's College for sixth form. But when I left high school, I actually did want to go to UTech, right? But I apparently couldn't have gone at 15, right? So I was very eager to get into what university was about. So I wasn't very daunted at the time. It was more a bit of excitement. But again, thinking about it in retrospect, I should have been very daunted. Just going out into this big world by myself.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But 15, completed high school at 15. Can you tell us how that was possible? I know the typical age is 17.
Yes. So I got an early start in short, right? So I kind of started the age story when I was in college. I started primary school at 4. Didn't really do much in terms of basic school. I had people at home in the form of my mother and my aunt for a very long time who were very focused on stimulating my mind. So I would read a lot from a very young age, and it translated. So I went into grade 1 at 4, and I was able to keep up. And I actually finished primary school at the top of the pile in terms of GSAT scores. I did GSAT when I was 9. I turned 10 the day after GSAT. So I mean, everything kind of felt fairly normal to me.
Right.
I mean, I tell people that I've always felt older than I actually am. I've always been surrounded with people in school at least 2 years older than me, and in life, in some cases, many in my career, many years older than me. Right? So I've really had to take on, I'd say, a more mature form, whether it's academically, professionally. But my friends will tell you that I do act my age outside of the suit.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Balance.
yeah, man. There's good balance.
There's
Yeah,
balance.
yeah, man.
Of course. And then left UTech in 2012, did 4 years, your bachelor's. What was your first job outside of that?
So it's an interesting story, right? So in 2012, the financial landscape was nowhere near as vibrant as it is now. And despite the, I want to say lull, that's probably in place now, occasioned by higher interest rates and greater uncertainty and so on. This market that we are experiencing in Jamaica today is many times more robust, more vibrant, more substantial than what would have been the case 12 years ago when I left university. Right? So I remember I applied for over 70 jobs.
Oh.
Well, over 70, I mean, I applied for the most unusual jobs after a while, right? You start out applying to all the places where you really want to work. And then I ended up in a tailspin applying for anything that I saw, right? And it was either no response or, we're sorry, we don't have any vacancies. And after a few months, I was a little bit, perturbed. Right? Now, how I ended up being connected with the first place I was employed was through university. I had a lecturer who taught me when I was in third year, and it was the only lecturer with whom I had done office hours. I just did one office hours my entire university experience because I was really intrigued by her career. And I told her what I wanted to do. I said, boy, by this time, I knew I wanted to do finance, but I had made up my mind that I wanted to do risk management. Right? I have never worked in risk management, at least not directly. And I was telling her what I wanted to do, and she gave me some advice. And she said to me, whenever you're ready, I can introduce you to the head of risk at a financial firm. I was like, sure. I did not know what that meant at the time. Right? That was a serious offer. It was big, but to me, it just ran off my back. Right? Anyway, so a year plus later, she remembered the discussion, and she somehow got my number and reached out to me and said, hey, I hear that there's an internship happening, and the company was Jamaica National, in risk at Jamaica National.
Right.
Are you interested? I had, of course, applied to Jamaica National many times.
But you did.
still waiting to hear. So I said yes, and I ended up being contacted, went for what I thought was an interview for a risk management internship. And it turns out I ended up speaking to the two people who were heading up the investments division at Jamaica National Building Society at the time. The AGM for Treasury, Brando Hayden, who is the managing director for JN Fund Managers now, and the treasurer, who at the time her name was Tamara Silveira. She's now overseas. I interviewed with them, and suffice to say, I left the interview in awe about all the possibilities in the world of investments. I no longer wanted to do risk management, right? And they didn't have a job for me at the time, right? They were doing what they call an exploratory interview, right? I don't know what that means. In my mind, I've now met these people and I'm going to find a way to work with them. So I left the interview, excited, intrigued, everything. I wrote them. Well, first, I wrote the email down on a piece of paper, right? And I tell you, I still have that piece of paper. So I wrote the email down and then I wrote them and told them thanks and all of the usual things. And from then I was decided I needed to figure out a way how to go and work at this place with these people. So I became the king of follow-up, and I followed up and I followed up. And eventually that follow-up turned into a tangible opportunity. So Later that year, in November 2012, I started as an investment analyst with the Jamaica National Group, and that's where I began my career.
Oh, but I'm just following up. So an internship, or what would have been an internship,
Yes,
turned
turned
into.
into some job, right? I mean, it was. I tell people that my career is littered with providence,
Right.
right? I mean, so I'm sure I've done a few things right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've followed the conventional path. I've done well in school, and I've bettered myself academically, and my peers will probably tell you that I'm at least reasonably good at what I do. But there have been so many defining events in my career
Right.
that I can only chalk up to a higher power. It had nothing at all to do with my own inputs, or it really was ordained. And those moments are really, when you really break it down to brass tacks, what has taken me along the path, which has led me to be able to speak to you today. So, as I said, I've certainly done some work, but there's somebody looking out for me.
Of course. Can you share one of those pivotal moments in your career?
For sure, I can tell you one. And so I remember started at Jamaica National and November 2012. And by the following May, 6 of the 8 people who were on my team had left or were leaving. They had charted a path out of the organization, to include the 2 people that hired me.
Whoa.
Yeah. So here I was by this time 21 years old, the newest member of the team. In February of 2012, 3 months after I started, the government did a second debt restructuring. Right? The financial services sector was in a state of uncertainty. Right? We were maybe a year or so removed from a change in administration. So newish government, new IMF deal, and I was there at 21 in this team of people who I was getting to know, and 6 of them were leaving. And I was filled with fear.
Wow.
I was very stressed. I think you can understand that I'm now thinking about how easy it would be to move back to St. Thomas, right? Because I'm like, what's going to happen is they're probably going to just change this whole dynamic, and I'm not going to have a job, and I'm going to have to go back out there and send out 70 odd more applications.
Follow up again.
I don't want to follow up. So I thought that was a catastrophic moment in my career. I was gelling well with these people. I was learning from them. After 6 months, I was promoted from my starting level to a supervisory level in the same role. Things were going well, and then they were not. In any case, new persons came in to the division to fill the roles that were made vacant by the departures. And I spent the first 6 months of me being there trying to learn as much as possible from everybody around me. And because of that, I knew a lot of things that I shouldn't have known. I knew what the portfolio managers were doing. I knew what was in the portfolio and why, and what the company was. So I was almost a bridge between the new people coming in and the business, right? Not even recognizing that that's what I was doing, right? I had a lot of institutional knowledge that I had garnered over a short space of time. I tell people that I used to spend my days trying to figure out what my colleagues were doing, and then spend my nights doing my actual work. I was like 20, I never have anything to do. Right? So the new people who came into the business at that time in leadership roles, I suppose, recognized that, I had a little utility, right?
Yeah.
And they gave me a tremendous opportunity to actually manage a large part of the portfolio. So I moved from being an investment analyst to assistant portfolio manager for fixed income and equities, which at that time, that portfolio was almost 60 billion Jamaican dollars equivalent. Very complex, very interesting portfolio at 21. And during the period of uncertainty, I will tell you, I was out there applying for jobs. There was a particular job that I was, again, fixated on the job. I'm like, this is my job. This is it. I applied for the job, and let me tell you, I did not get it. Right? A guy who I had gone to school with got the job. He was more experienced than me. He deserved it. And I felt so disappointed. And if I had gotten that job, I can tell you for sure I wouldn't be in this seat.
Oh.
I would have felt in the moment that there was a victory, but I wouldn't even realize what I would have been giving up. Right? And shortly thereafter, as I said, people came in and I was promoted. Right? And it's only one thing. I had nothing to do with that. If I had my way, I would have gotten the job and gone and leave all this uncertainty behind. Right? But the Lord left me in place and He set me up for something greater. So that's one. And again, I have so many more.
But that one thing, that certain
it was a defining moment for sure.
Life changing, of course. And leaving from JMBS, what was your next role?
So, with Jamaica National, I held a few roles. I started as an investment analyst. I was assistant portfolio manager. Well, I was assistant manager, but I was the portfolio manager. And then I was promoted to manager thereafter. And then I left what is probably now the Jamaica National Group, as Jamaica National Building Society at that time owned all the different entities, JN Fund Managers, JN General Insurance, and they did a restructuring and converted to a bank away from the Building Society. But before that, there was an opportunity for me to go to the investment company, JN Fund Managers. So I moved from the treasury management unit to JN Fund Managers as chief investment strategist and head of research. So that was my first 4 year into investment banking, stock brokerage, directly before I was managing money. So I spent almost 3 years at JN Fund Managers, effectively building out their investment research function. I was also chief investment strategist, so that meant interacting on both on balance sheet and off balance sheet, so mutual funds, etc., investment strategy. Right, I was kind of the lead investment guy there for a while, and I spent a total of almost 7 years with the Jamaica National Group until I decided that I probably needed a change. Right? So, and that change, it was a strange thing, because I remember when people found out that I was leaving, they were puzzled. They were very confused.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, some people told me that I was destroying my career.
Wow.
I was interrupting my rise. What am I doing? But the decision to make a change was not driven at all by, it wasn't a push factor. Yeah? Right. By this time I was 25, 26. I'd done, as I said, about 6 or 7 years there. And I said to myself, Jamaica National has its particular style and brand and motion, right? It's distinct. But I want to experience another style and brand and motion to figure out what's my style.
Yeah.
Right? So I deliberately looked outward for opportunities that could give me that. And the opportunity to come to Barita represented that. Barita was just taken over by Cornerstone, a fairly unknown quantity. They, were telling a story of serious growth prospects. It was a vision that I could align myself around, improving the lives of the average person in Jamaica and the Caribbean. That's really Cornerstone's ethos. And that's what they wanted to implant onto Barita. So when the opportunity came about for me to join, it really appealed to me. Right? And that was the temptation that turned into the reality. So I joined Barita in 2019 as VP Asset Management and Research. So that's the story.
Of course. And saw that you went back, you completed your master's, of course, at the NYU Stern School of Business.
I did.
What motivated that?
It's a good question.
Preparing to be CEO.
Again, people ask me if I was crazy, right? And And I asked myself that about halfway into the course. I'm
Wow.
like, well, this is madness. There was a lot going on. I mean, we were in the middle of the pandemic.
Right.
And, I had gotten increased responsibilities in the business, and it was just, and I honestly, looking back, I honestly don't know how I completed that degree. But I'd say one pillar of my professional life and progress thus far has been my focus on being prepared. And that's how I describe it. So there's no substitute for experience. I tell people that all the time. There's no substitute for doing, right? And being young, as I am, and being lacking of experience in years, I have sought to bolster that with experience of doing and learning an activity and learning from others, right? I'm a big proponent of mentorship. I think mentorship puts you light years ahead if you have the right mentor, right? And I have been blessed to be mentored by, some of the best is not even the word, some of the most capable people in this sector, both the people who I work with currently and people who I've worked with in the past. I mean, that has been another pillar. But the one that I'm focused on is, the fact that I have made it a point of duty to pursue what I think are fit for purpose academic endeavors. So after I left UTech, I would have completed my financial risk manager designation, which is, I think, the premier designation in financial risk management. I would have earned my chartered financial analyst designation, which again is probably recognized as the gold standard for our sector. And since coming to Barita, I would have become certified as a chartered alternative investment analyst, because of course Barita has had from the beginnings of its post-acquisition push a focus on alternative investments, real estate, private credit, private equity, and so on. And then yes, I went to NYU Stern, so I did almost 2 years there. I did a master's in quantitative management, which, in describing it to people, it's an MBA core. So you do all the core business subjects. And you do fintech, and you do programming, and decision science.
Right.
So I describe it as a modern MBA. You figure out how to apply the use of technology to solving the typical business problems and integrating it into your traditional strategic planning and management studies. And it was very interesting. I learned a lot, met some fantastic people. And so it's a great school. It was a good experience.
Of course. I know that you're Chief Executive Officer. What are some of your plans in terms of growth for Barita Investments Limited?
Great question, because I do have to have plans in this role. So, I have inherited the reins of the business at a very critical juncture. Since the acquisition of the company, fueled by Cornerstone, Barita has done very well by, I'd say, all objective metrics. We have been able to expand our reach and impact for our customers. We have created a lot of value for both our customers and our shareholders. And by virtue of the growth in the business, we have been able to touch a lot more lives through employment. Right? We have built, I think, a very strong team of people. Right? So having done that foundational work over the last 5, almost 6 years since the acquisition, it's now my job to build on that. Right? So I tell people that my job is to now be more surgical with respect to the strategic approach. Before, with big dreams and ambitions, you could afford just to be more directional. So you know you want to grow. How much you want to grow by? Let's not even set a target. Let's just grow next year, and you end up growing by a large amount. Now I have to be more clinical in my approach, right? So there are a few areas that I'm keenly focused on. One is ensuring that the fantastic portfolio of talent that we have is well engaged. They feel connected to our mission and vision, and they're well equipped to perform. Right? So it means they have the resources. So that's what people say. The second part of it is, I have all these fantastic customers. I need to listen to them. and I need to refine my product offering, my service delivery, whether it's channels or style, to be closer to what they would want, right? You want the perfect product, but certainly you want to pursue perfection, and therefore you achieve improvement. So the customer side of things, really making the customer the center of the universe, is important to me as well.
Okay.
Another aspect of things that is critically important is really embedding innovation in what we do as a business. Right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to convert everything that is analog to being digital. It does mean, however, that we're going to figure out how to continuously improve
Right.
in all areas of the business. And technology may be a solution that drives that. The final point is that on a wholesale front, right, big impact, we have built a very capable investment banking business. We have, from scratch, since we started that business in late 2018, we've raised over $130 billion for our clients. And we want to continue along that vein. We want to be increasingly impactful in the investment banking business. And, I think where Jamaica is in its growth cycle, having steadied the ship with respect to debt, having matured a lot with respect to our policies and approach, I mean, we have become quite attractive, I'd say, from the outside looking in for investors, for people who want to deploy capital. And I think a key conduit for that, or the key conduit for that, has to be capable investment banks. Right? So we definitely want to put ourselves in the middle of the flow of capital that should come from outside of Jamaica into Jamaica. So it means we have to curate the opportunities and make them investable, put them in a form that people can understand in order to attract that capital. That's a big part of what I'd like to help to facilitate here at Barita. So those are high level plans. I have some more, but I can't tell you everything.
Of course, I'll come back to it those. But being in the role here, Chief Executive Officer, you're quite young, as we've mentioned. As we realize, you must be overseeing some persons that are a little bit, older than you. How is the dynamic of the workplace culture with all that?
It's a good question. So it's funny. So I know that dynamic is commonplace, right? It is. But I'll tell you that in this role and roles that I've held previously here, so I had leadership roles at Jamaica National, but certainly I wasn't leading very large teams. I mean, here I have over a score of people who either report directly or indirectly to me. And frankly, I have felt nothing but support from the team, right? And it's probably a combination of the output that I've been able to achieve since being here, working alongside these people. So they said, boy, this guy he's a talker, but he's also a doer. Right? I'm not short for words. So that's probably one. And two, my leadership style is it's very candid. I am very open. I am vulnerable. I am not afraid to admit to my team members that they know more about a particular thing than me, because they should. They're specialists. Right? One common thing that I say to the team is, if you're the head of a particular area and I know more about that area than you, then we have a problem.
Right.
we have because you're the specialist.
Right.
I am the generalist. I'm looking across the business. I'm trying to connect the dots. So, taking that more vulnerable approach vis-a-vis being big-headed and pretending, posturing and pretending as though I have all the answers, I think helps to engender the support from the team. What I am trying to do, I'm not there yet, is to ensure that there is buy-in around what we're trying to pursue. And I think that glue will also help to hold us together well. So I don't feel any form of insubordination, but I'm not an army general, so I'm not ordering anybody around, but I'm not feeling that kind of resistance. And I never feel a sense as though what I'm saying is less valuable to any other team members because I'm young. So I've been blessed in that regard. But I do know that dynamic is commonplace.
It does.
They will tell you to sit in the corner. So you're young, you don't live any life yet. But I haven't experienced that here. And it's the culture as well, right? So, in terms of leadership here, we have, I think, a healthy mix of youth and vibrancy and experience. And we are unique in that even the young people on our team have a whole lot of experience. And 20, 15 years, and there are people, in their early 40s. They started out early. So we're blessed to have a culture that also fosters that, because, hey, it's not every day that a 20 plus year old or early 30s guy is put in the kind of leadership position that I have been put in, and it must speak to the culture and the nature of the organization.
Of course. And so, CEO of Barita Investments Limited, President of Jamaica Dealers. There's so many hats that you wear.
Oh yes.
How how do you balance all this in addition to your personal life? How do you, because you're still young, as you mentioned, so you must have a little bit. How do you?
It's a good question, right? And I tell you, I always have a full plate, right? And what I have done up to a certain point is seek to live my life in sequence, right? Which is not something that's sustainable. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. Earlier in my career, I was just really focused on the preparation. So I was working and going to school, and that was just dominating my life, right? I was studying, and when I was studying, I was working, and of course, you had to give up some of the more exciting things in life, right? I lost some friendships because they just weren't seeing me. It's understandable, right? Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right.
Now, in more recent years, and particularly with how things have gone, you go through a pandemic, and one thing the pandemic told me is, I remember, this is gonna be a strange anecdote. I remember the weekend before the first case came to Jamaica, there was a party that a friend invited me to. And I went home to sleep and wake up and go to the party, and I slept much too long. I said, sure, I missed this party. There's gonna be another one next week.
Yeah.
It's so nice. Well, we had the first case, and we did not see any parties, or at least any legal ones, until very long after. Right? And it taught me that you may not be able to do it next week. So this living your life in sequence may not be the best thing to do. So I have adopted a different approach where, I just, as though people look at their portfolio and they divide it into different buckets and they allocate their assets. That's how I allocate my life. So I know that work is going to take a big chunk of it. And I understand that. But there must be a limit to the chunk of it that it can take. Right? Because as you have said, I have other things to do. Right? There are other commitments that I have that may be related to work too, like the Securities Dealers Association and boards that I may sit on and so on. But I do have to also prioritize me. So my health, for example, young guy, but like many young people, felt invincible. I was just living life and not, paying special attention to taking care of myself. And of course, I definitely gained more weight than I should have had up to a point in time. And then I decided, well, no, I forget, get rid of this, I have to take hold of this. So that's how I got into fitness and making sure that, it's okay. Similarly, I kept treating, the relationships in my life, my family and friends, dealing with them in a residual way. So when I have some time, I'll probably go and look at it. No, I'm a lot more deliberate. This is the time that I'm going to go, and whatever is happening, I'll find a way to make it happen. And I've also tried to finally prioritize doing things that I actually want to do, that I like, making time to do it. And then this is the minority of the time, but taking a little time to just do nothing at all. So always have a full plate, but sometimes the plate is actually full with things that I want to do as opposed to the things that I have to do. So it's really just about being deliberate about how you spend your time. You'll find that when you're not deliberate about how you spend your time, you waste a lot of time. You sit just scrolling for 2 hours or 3 hours, and scrolling might be good, but at least you need to be conscious that you're going to take these 2 hours and scroll. It shouldn't be incidental.
Right.
And it shouldn't be by accident. So just being deliberate.
Of course. And how do you intend to differentiate Barita from other investment banking companies over the next quarter?
Very good question. Very good question. Well, it will be over time, right? So our products and services, by and large, across different security dealers, they're homogeneous. They're kind of the same, right? You can go elsewhere and get a repo or you get a unit trust. So any point of differentiation has to come from the people, right? Like with most things. And that's the only thing that will make us special, right? So there are two areas I'd say that we want to differentiate. And everybody will say this, but it really represents the point of competition. One, we need to apply the right ideas to how we invest, which is what will deliver differential returns to our clients. Right? That's one. Two, a big pain point for clients with respect to financial services in general is service. Right. I'm not going to promise people perfect service, but what I am going to promise them is that the key pain points, the points that are most painful, we're going to be attacking them with solutions to make things less painful. Yeah. Right? Now, I think, until we can get to it being a joy for people to do business with us, right? And we'll get there. We certainly want to be the best of the bunch, right, with respect to doing business. And we're going to focus on making that incrementally true, period after period after period, by listening to the customers and attacking the points of most discomfort that they have and making it comfortable. So those are the two areas. It's going to be us trying to be best in class with respect to returns, delivering at least differential returns through the ideas and the people. And it's going to be figuring out how we really improve our customer service, reduce the friction, and make things happen.
Of course. Well, sounds like great plans, of course, coming from you. And there might be somebody out there, who might like the numbers, like the dollar signs beside the numbers right now, sitting in their classroom thinking they want to pursue a career in finance or, just accounting on a whole. What's one thing you'd like to say to that person?
One thing. So, what I tell people who have the opportunity to speak to is you have to chart your own path, right? So, I've described elements of my path, which has been very haphazard. It's very hard to replicate that. It's very hard to replicate going from wanting to jump on crocodiles to ending up as the head of an investment bank. Yeah. So, to begin with, you have to recognize that you will probably travel a path that is very different from the examples that you look at before you. And you shouldn't be discouraged because you don't end up on the same road as them at the same time as them. Right? The next thing that I'd say is it ties back to something that I mentioned, which I indicated has been central to my professional life. You have to prepare. You have to prepare for the opportunity that you don't even know exists. Right? You have to figure out what that means. It may mean different things at different times. It may mean reading this or studying that or watching this, but be prepared. Prepare when you don't know what is before you. Right? And the opportunity will find you. The worst thing that you want to happen is that the perfect opportunity presents and you are less prepared than you could have been. Right? That's what I'd say. I mean, it's two things, but those two things I'll leave with you.
Of course. Right, so Ramon, I would just want to say thank you.
Thank you for appreciate
talking with us here at Business Access TV.
No problem.
Greatly appreciate it. All right, so that was it here on Blueprint on Business Access TV. We just had a talk with the Chief Executive Officer of Barita Investments Limited, Mr. Ramon Small-Ferguson. But don't move. Stay tuned to Business Access TV, where we're serious about business.